Okay, everyone, we're ready to get started here. Welcome to the East Lyme Board of Finance regular meeting. Today is Wednesday, June 9th, 2021. The time is now 7:03 p.m. We will begin the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next on our agenda is delegations. This is where anybody from the public has an opportunity to address the Board of Finance. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak before the board this evening? Okay, seeing no hands, we'll move right along. We are going to start this evening with a special presentation by the chair of the Plan of Conservation and Development. Michelle Royce Williams will come to the podium. Just state your name and address and role for the record. And
Sure. Michelle Williams, 2 Barrett Drive, and I am a member of the Planning Commission and the chair of the Plan of Conservation and Development Steering Committee. Thank you, Madam Chair, for having me here. Thank you, board members, for your time tonight. I really appreciate it. I know that sometimes you go till like 2 a.m., so I thought we could just read through the POCD out loud together in detail, all 100 and some odd pages. I'll be much quicker. So I just wanted to get in front of you and kind of walk through what the last 2 years plus have been like in relation to the Plan of Conservation Development, what the Planning Commission has been working on, and where we'd kind of like to go from here. So I think many of you are aware, but just for the record, the state requires every municipality to have a Plan of Conservation and Development on file with the state, and that must be updated at least once every 10 years. If it's not, we're not eligible for lots of state funding that I'm sure this group in particular wants to make sure we continue receiving. Discretionary funds like steep grants and things like that. So we were due for an update, which needed to be filed by December of 2020. The document is kind of managed by the Planning Commission. So out of the Planning Commission, we formed a subcommittee in 2019. Our update was a completely volunteer effort. This is not the case in many other towns and cities, small towns to bigger cities across the state. We researched our spending $50,000 to $205,000 to update their plans of conservation and development every 10 years. So we were very happy to be able to have the committed residents volunteering their time to work on this document for the town, along with town staff, certainly put in a lot of time. So we formed the subcommittee, and then the first thing we did was kind of take a look at the 2009 plan, which was the current plan on file, go through the document and see what has happened since then. What have we done in the plan? What have we accomplished? What's still underway? What maybe doesn't apply anymore? And we did a lot of research on the now old plan. Then we sent out invitations to a number of stakeholder groups. So every board and commission was made aware of the process. The town departments, community groups like Nyack Main Street and other similar nonprofit groups. And we wanted to build a coalition of stakeholders to come in and give us their feedback as experts in their areas. So we built a really nice group of stakeholders. We had several stakeholder meetings where they could come in and give feedback. We had different people come to the subcommittee along the way, and they helped us draft some of the recommendations in the plan. We also held a public forum to gather just any input that people wanted to share. I know some of you were at that public forum. This room was packed. It lasted about 2 hours. We got a lot of really great feedback that night. People were very generous with their ideas and sharing what they love about the town, where they think we should go next. And we also put together a community questionnaire, which was sent out online, and we had some
postcards that we could hand out at various things. We handed them out at the election that year to voters to invite them to give us their feedback online. And we had just over 500 responses for that. So one of our goals was to really make sure that this plan was not updated in a vacuum, that we were being as inclusive as possible in terms of gathering feedback and really getting firsthand knowledge of what community members wanted, from board and commission members and town staff to dedicated stakeholder groups, and then just the public at large. So we took all of that information and for the next year worked carefully on updating the plan and staying in touch with those stakeholders throughout the process. We held 2 public hearings, one through the Board of Selectmen, one at the Planning Commission, and the plan was adopted in December of 2020. Sometimes in the process at a municipality, that's where it ends, right? Then why am I here today? We decided as a subcommittee that we wanted to keep the subcommittee together, and we wanted to work hard to help facilitate the plan in moving from a plan to something that's actionable. We would like to see these recommendations move forward, and so we decided to stay together as a subcommittee to do what we can to facilitate that plan moving forward, the recommendations being enacted. So that's why I'm here today. We've been visiting various boards and commissions for the last couple months, just kind of going through what is in the actual plan, letting you know about our process, and also just inviting you to be involved moving forward, whether that's sending someone as an ex officio to the subcommittee or working out a schedule where one of the representatives of the subcommittee comes back here, a couple times a year to just inform you on what's going on and any developments that have taken place. Our goal is to make sure that this doesn't turn into a paperweight. And I'm not saying that it has been in the past. I'm just saying that that's what we don't want to happen. So we are very committed to seeing this through from a document to, actionable items throughout the town. So I think that all of you were sent the link to the plan prior to this meeting, so I'm sure that you had a chance to kind of go over it in details. There are some things that we have worked on that are not yet posted online, but will be soon, that might make it more user-friendly. The first thing we have is this is an internal document, but we took every recommendation and charted out who the stakeholders would be that would be responsible for enacting a recommendation, right? So if it's something about parks and recreation spaces, we know that they're going to be involved in that. This is going to help us keep track of things as they move forward. It's going to help us know who we need to stay in touch with over the next 10 years. And then we also pulled out all of the recommendations themselves into a smaller document that's a little bit easier to thumb through than the big thing, which does include a lot of really great information. So some things that I just wanted to call out to you. I think you already saw it. There's a number of these things that are kind of big ticket items or long-term measures to make our town more resilient and protect us from what we reasonably believe will be coming in the future. One of the requirements for the update this year from the state of Connecticut was that each chapter had to address sustainability and resiliency issues. And we found that to be very important here, as a coastal community especially. And what what timing that we're looking at sustainability and resiliency in a year where both of those were tested in our town, right? And everywhere, of course. So that there are some recommendations that address that very specifically in the plan that I want to call your attention to. In addition, there's some things that I think have been kind of tossed around over the years that are still in there from previous documents. I made a brief list, but so many of them touch this board. looking at creating a regular funding of monies available for open space purchases so that when they come up, the town can react quickly. There's a lot of recommendations in here about soliciting grants and other funding that maybe we're not accessing now. Definitely for the sustainability stuff. I think the Neighborhood Assistance Act is in here. But there's a lot of case studies that we looked at other towns and how did they fund these big ideas and put that right in the plan so that we don't need to reinvent the wheel. Let's just see if there's anything else that I wanted to talk about. There are a number of resiliency recommendations specific to the coastline that came out of the town's study on coastal resiliency, which was conducted in late 2018 by Stantec. Those are all in here. But I guess I'll just open it up to questions and discussion on, what you'd like to talk about and how you'd like to be involved moving forward, if at all.
Thanks, Michelle. Really appreciate that 20,000-foot view of this document. I just want to, again, say thank you so much to you and your board. I mean, secrets out, you guys did this at a cost of $0 to the town, and many other municipalities are paying upwards of $50,000 to $200,000 to get this quality of a document put on their books. And it is important because of what you said. Without it, we are cut off from access to potential grants for land acquisition. So if that's something that this town cares about, then it's good to sort of have an action plan in place. And I have noticed that one of the objectives in your study, for example, is establishing community gardens, Giving Garden. We recently have just launched that in town, the East Lyme Community Giving Garden. So I don't know what came first, but it seems like many of us in town are on the same page with what we'd like our town to look like, and I think this is a great guiding document. So thank you again.
Thank you.
And particularly what's helpful too is the whole land of unique value study and the prioritization of parcels of land. Should they become available, what would be most beneficial to our town to acquire. So I think it's invaluable. And again, I just really appreciate all the work and effort.
Thank you.
And I'm going to open it up to the rest of the board for questions.
You brought up 2 points that I'd love to expand on, just
Sure.
for everyone's knowledge. The open space list that you just referred to, that is an updated list from what was in the 2009 plan. It's very similar, but it's kind of prioritized by a point scoring system, right, on kind of how valuable the land would be on a number of different metrics. And Natural Resources Commission meeting now down the hall revised it for this year to place a greater impact on the land's ability to protect our town's water quality. So that's something that we were really proud to include in this one. And then your mention of the community garden reminded me of something else that I wanted to talk about with this group, which is that, when we talk about this document, it certainly is a municipal document, but it is a community document, and all of the lifts, all of the recommendations, all of the actions don't necessarily need to come out of this building. And there are a number of committed community volunteers across the town that are willing to take these on either as individuals or nonprofit groups or other community groups. And the Giving Garden is a perfect example of that. And so as you read through it, think about partnerships too, not just these are the things that the town would need to take on, because that's not always the case.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Michelle? Yes, Anne.
Michelle, I think this is really great. I actually printed it down and tried to read through the whole thing today when I was supposed to be working.
That was ambitious.
I was really impressed, and I think it really gives a good picture of what our town is like. What I just listened to you speak also, I think that if you could come back to us every few months, or we could bring somebody there and kind of keep the town informed as to where it's going and, you know, what everybody's doing, that would be really, really good. I thought too, like the grants, some of them was like an agricultural viability grant, open space grants. You know, I've never heard of those, and I thought that was something that could be looked into further. The other thing was, you know, they were talking about this Michigan Urban Farming Initiative, providing food to 2,000 households with 2 acres of farmland.
Yeah.
I was like stunned by those numbers. You know, that's just a huge amount of people to feed with just 2 acres of land. You know. So I think this was excellent, and I think it really kind of raised my awareness of all the different policies that can, in different programs that can be done, you know. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Yes.
There we go. Michelle, thank you, and thank your subcommittee. You know, lots of work. I certainly appreciate that, and I think the town appreciates it. You know, of course. You know, I had listened to a Board of Selectmen meeting where you were suggesting that you go to them every so many months with sort of updates and sort of keep your project alive, so that many of the issues that have been raised and the wishes of the residents, you know, are made apparent. So, you know, I think that's a good idea for the Board of Finance. I don't know, you know, in terms of so many months or whatever would be appropriate, but that would be very helpful. Yeah, and I took a look at some of the sections that were directly related to finance and taxation, just to begin the process of reading. But glad to see about a grant person, because that, I think we all share that, and even though we're theoretically not in our lane, you know, on a policy issue, it's one that would be really helpful. So yeah, that, you know, if we could use our ARP money for a grant person, that would be miraculous, but definitely a good thought, because it would save a lot of time and a lot of energy, and if someone were dedicated, you know, to those issues. So, but thanks again.
Thank you.
Yes, Rich.
Yeah, I just echo everybody that's spoken so far. It's a tremendous piece of work, and I know the hours that were put into it and the number of people that were involved. It's very well organized. It makes sense how you give a background on a subject, you deal with the issues, and then you have your recommendations. In that chart that you briefly showed us, I'm wondering, granted, I didn't go through this in great detail at this point, but I'm wondering if you have time frames for looking to make these things actionable. And if we don't, then maybe build them in, and if we get to that time point and nothing's been done, well, then we can maybe look to see what are the causes of why we didn't achieve that. And again, with the grant writing, I think that opens up a lot of avenues for funding that we may not consider normally. And I think regular presentations to the various boards that are impacted through aspects of the POCD are very important, because board members, through their own personal experiences, may be able to elucidate other sources of funding or volunteer groups or organizations that can kind of help achieve some of the goals. Just a quick little technical aspect is in the document, it's nice that you pulled out a separate document of the recommendations, but if you can have hot links in the table of content that take you to the specific points, so if somebody's looking through the entire document, they don't have to scroll through the 130, 160 pages of the document. And then that list of activities that you had, I don't know if there'd be some way that as actions are taken or discussions considered, that there could be some way that if public members want to keep active on this, that they could get alerted to changes in that. But again, hats off, wonderful job. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that feedback, too. That's great. To answer one of your questions there, we have identified kind of short-term, mid-term, and long-term goals. Within those large buckets, we have not yet gotten to the, prioritization and looking at firmer timelines. But
Right.
really, thank you for the feedback. Good stuff.
Just want to thank you. You did a magnificent job. I got about a third of the way through it before tonight's meeting.
It is 100 pages shorter than the last one.
And, no, I was impressed with how it was written and the quality of work. And I think one of the things that I heard you say tonight is that you're trying to keep this to be a live, working document. And however we as a board can help do that, I want to support your suggestion of keeping open communication and contact, and feel free to invite a board member to yours or come and speak and just give us updates and keep it alive so it doesn't get pushed aside, and then in 2 years you come looking for some money. Well, what's going on? I think the idea of keeping a live document is good, and I certainly support that, and will help you in any way I can.
Thank you.
So.
Thanks, Peter.
All right.
Two things. Of all the list of things you have to work on, what's your first priority? If
The
you
Board of
have-
Selectmen threw this question at me too, and it's trying to pick a favorite child. I mean, there are so many things, and they are, it's easy for Peter to pick a favorite child. On certain days, me too, but all of the recommendations are so connected. And I'm not just talking about, conservation, sustainability, and resiliency. I'm talking about development too, because everything touches something else. So it's very hard to pull one out and say, this is the most important thing we should do. There's certainly things that we could pull out these are things we could do fast to get momentum and make an impact, or these are things that are, big ticket recommendations. We've been talking about some of the things that require funding, but there are a lot of policy recommendations in here too. And, that's where kind of, for me, the rubber meets the road. Like, we can talk about kind of where we recommend going policy-wise and the feedback that we got from community members. But as you know, then it gets to the board level and changing, updating a policy. There's a whole other, procedure to go through, and we might get different feedback there, So your question is very valid. It is one that I wish I could answer, but I simply cannot, just because of how interconnected I see this whole plan, that it would be difficult to pull a piece off as this is the best thing.
Are you confined by the state at all?
Confined?
Yeah.
Well, they did have to, accept the plan. There were things that we had to include in it. I mentioned that they did accept the plan, by the way. There were things that we had to include. We had to talk about sea level rise. We had to talk about resiliency. We had to talk about sustainability. We had to put in, even things like, maps of the sewer shed, right? So there are guidelines and, regulations on the books about it, but largely this is a document by the town for the town.
One more thing. Do you work in coordination with the group Pollinator Pathways? Because I know they're heavily involved in the garden behind the church.
Yep.
And then Sam Smith's garden.
Yep. Marjorie Meekoff came to several of our meetings. You'll see Pollinator Pathway recommendations right in the beginning in agriculture, but then this is a perfect example of how everything's related. Pollinator Pathways comes in the agricultural resources chapter, but it comes in again in the commercial resources chapter because we feel that parking lots are a great place to kind of put some of these little pollinator hubs to connect the pathway between some of our, more developed areas and areas where there, is more natural habitat.
Okay,
Good example.
Well, thank you for all the work you're doing, and I hope things move forward for you.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. I just have a few brief comments. One, I think as I'm reading through this document, my thought goes to, well, how can the Board of Finance support you in your efforts? What is our role? Certainly you had mentioned, perhaps setting aside funds for open space. So I think that's something for this board to be aware of, much like we we have a large focus on trying to develop our undesignated fund balance. Maybe this is something that we should also be looking at, is trying to find ways to set money aside for open space. In terms of appointing an ex officio to your commission, I would love to do that. I think timing-wise, maybe we have an election coming up and half this board is up for re-election, so we don't really know who is going to be sitting here until, after November 2nd. So maybe after that, at our November meeting, whoever, there's 3 of us that are up for a re-election, the other 3 are not. So if one of you could remember, maybe to bring that up at the November meeting, if we're here, to appoint an ex officio to this commission, because I would like to get, more frequent updates on this. So you talked about making sure that we can set aside some money for different initiatives, but I think in the document you also gave an example or 2 of what not to spend money on. So, for example, we wouldn't necessarily want to develop open space for Parks and Rec or ball fields necessarily.
Yes. Well, both. There is a recommendation in there to increase fields capacity across the town. That's something that Parks and Rec has been very clear that they need more of. So I don't want to give the impression that this document does not support expansion of athletic fields. But it does talk about citing them appropriately. And there's some, I'd have to pull it up to look at it exactly with you, but there are some guidelines around, what citing it appropriately would be.
So is there anything that we have not touched on where the Board of Finance can have a role in this going forward? Or pretty much we've covered it?
I think we've covered it. I just, I'm glad to have this opportunity because I think that this is something that, it's a long-range planning document, right? So there might not be an actionable thing for this board to do today, but having this in the back of your mind, knowing what the goals are as board members, but also as community members, I think is really important. And I think our goal, especially in this first year, is to just really increase awareness of the document so that when the time comes for these various, when opportunities arise, there's already a baseline level of education on why the opportunity may or may not make sense in relation to the plan.
Very good.
Just one quick question. For the meetings that you have for the POCD, will they be on the town website or in the newspaper?
Yes, they'll be both, so we have to file an agenda. And just for your own knowledge, too, what we landed on was meeting every other month on the day of the Planning Commission meeting before the Planning Commission meets, so at 6 or 6:30 that night.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate your time.
Have a good evening. Okay. With that, we are going to move on to approval of minutes, starting with the special meeting of April 21st, 2021. As you remember, we tabled this at our last meeting because we wanted to get more clarification on how to attach additional documents to the town website. I did speak with the town clerk on this today just to get the clarification I was looking for. And anything that is submitted after the fact can be included in the minutes of the meeting that we are currently having. So if there's any information that was disseminated back in March or April or even May during the budget season that you would like included for the public record, it can be done by a special request, and it will be attached to this evening's meeting. Now, just backing up a second, there's a lot of information that gets disseminated during the budget meeting, emails. I think it's up to each one of us to determine whether the content of that information influences maybe our decisions with regard to the budgeting process. And if it does, then that is something that we should forward to our recording secretary with a request to include in the meeting minutes. We don't have to include every last bit of information, because we all realize, right, that every communication that we put out, whether it's through email or regular mail or some kind of presentation, is FOIable. So we have to make sure that that information is available. But it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to upload 200 pages to the website every month. Let's use a little discretion here. So with that, I will call for a motion to approve the special meeting of the 21st.
I'll move to approve the special meeting minutes of April 21st, 2021.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion on that?
So, I have some discussion. Let's see, back on here. I can't see this from this side here. Yeah, at the last meeting where we were had a motion on the floor to approve the minutes, I had copied some emails that had circulated amongst board members wanting to attach them. And then we put a pause on that to double check. But I have the same set of emails, and I have printed them. And my thinking was this, that we have the minutes of the 21st, which primarily concerned our deliberations. And so I just went back, and there were a number of items that appeared or have appeared already in the we'll call them unofficial, because they're not approved minutes until we make this approval at this point. But if you go online and you look at what's under April 21st, there's a number of things. But there were, a couple of, I thought, critical pieces that were technical meetings, and by Freedom of Information requirements should be attached. So I made that request last time to no avail, but I'll do it again. So what I have, the first of these concerns, I had emailed Amy at Board of Education.
Excuse me, Ann.
Yes.
I don't know if we need to go through each one of these individually. Can we just assume that you are using your discretion, that they belong, and make a motion to just forward that?
That's fine. I just wanted to note what they were for the board members who weren't aware of what they are. So there was basically four sets of emails. One is one that I had requested from Amy some additional information about math coaching, and there were 2 attachments to that. So that is here with the attachments. Also with that is an email from Rich Steele responding to one of those attachments which originally came to us. So that's in this little packet. And then the second packet, and I thought math coaching was certainly an issue that we did deliberate at length on, so I wanted to capture that, and particularly because, as I said, it was a technical meeting or meetings. And then the other 2 are just with respect to the issue of staffing for the police department. And so there's basically a little email chain, myself and Ann Cocello, and that's what's in this other group. So that's it. And then my other point would be, although I haven't had that same conversation that you have had with our town clerk, the minutes are technically not approved until we approve them. So my feeling is these documents belong with the April 21st minutes, and not the minutes of tonight. It would be, if you're thinking about the public looking for information on what we deliberated upon, we didn't deliberate tonight. We deliberated in that evening with those documents. So, and I did make the request at last go around. So I think they belong with the April 21st minutes. So that would be my request. Thank you.
Well, I don't believe that is going to happen. So I think what we need to do is to make a motion to approve the minutes with the attachments that relate to the April 21st meeting. But they will be attached to this evening's minutes. You can't go back. Once the minutes are approved and uploaded on the website, you can't go back and revise what's already been there.
Those minutes that are on the website have not been approved yet. They are approved once this board decides that those minutes are approved. That's precisely what we're doing at this moment.
So I have the first selectman shaking his head yes, and the town clerk telling us that's not possible.
Point of order, you don't have approved minutes, so you can add and change dialogue as you often do. If someone wants to add something as it pertains to that meeting or content, I think you can. We do it.
So that
I see
means
other
that,
boards
so that means that we could go back 2 years and add something that was pertinent to something that happened 2 years ago? How would anybody find
If your minutes aren't
it?
approved, if you have minutes that aren't
Yeah.
approved, then no, you can't go back.
Yeah.
If that aren't approved, then yes, you can. And you've also held minutes open for many, many weeks or months.
Yes.
Sometimes so once they're approved, you can't add anything in.
Sure.
I agree. I think we're all saying the same
Yes,
thing.
yes.
But you have an open set of minutes right now that can be amended
Yep.
or added to, my opinion.
Right.
I'm a lawyer.
It's no different than if I could, it's no different than when we go around the table, read a set of minutes, which we're about to do after this set, and say, have you read them? Do you have anything to add or not? So it's really a matter of those minutes have not been officially approved, and that's the whole debate. What should be in those minutes?
Well, I would just say, well, yeah, Ann, I'm going to get your opinion in just a second.
Okay.
But the town clerk is an elected position, so we have no, we can't exactly tell her how to do her job. In fact, that was the exact argument that Mr. McCullough used when he came before us and said that he could utilize a collection agency if he so desired. He did not have to get approval for that. It wasn't costing any money. So if it's good for one elected official, I would think it's good for another elected official. And if Karen Galbo is telling us that she cannot do that, I think we have to respect that. That's what
But-
I'm saying.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, if the minutes have not been approved, then they really shouldn't be posted at that point. And if they're not approved,
State standards.
oh,
It's required
okay.
by the state.
Oh,
You
okay.
don't get a chance to sit for a month.
They're unapproved minutes.
Yes.
Right.
You can't, you
Right.
have to file them.
So within 7 days.
And we're not talking about the minutes, we're talking about attachments that weren't only pertinent to that April 21st meeting, but many other meetings that we held and conducted. Those emails were not really attached to any particular meeting. They were just information flows during the budget process. So who's to say where they really belong? I think if we're talking about this evening on the agenda, it's very clear where those documents could be found.
Well, I respectfully
And so
disagree.
Okay.
This evening's minutes, these documents that I have now printed out, not once but twice, have nothing to do with tonight's meeting, except for the fact that we are about to approve or not approve a set of minutes. So, and I think, none of the rest of us had the opportunity to speak to Ms. Galvo, but I honestly think that the minutes not only belong with April 21st, they have nothing to do with anything that we're doing
Oh,
this
just for
evening.
clarification, though, you said that you did have an opportunity to speak to Karen Galbo.
No, I said I did not have an opportunity to speak to her about your issue that you raised about attaching minutes to one set.
Oh, I thought you said that you had talked to her.
Attaching minutes, though, you're attaching attachments, supplemental information to the minutes. It's not the minutes.
Okay,
Correct, these,
Okay,
correct.
so, Anne, thank you. I would like to give our other attorney an opportunity to speak and maybe get a different, or the same point of view.
No, I was just gonna defer to the recording secretary because I spoke to her beforehand. Could you explain maybe how it works in the
It's the
town
same
hall?
as what, I discussed it with Karen Gallo, and she said you need to clearly understand that you don't present stuff after the fact from when the minutes were filed, because you have every opportunity to present it to me, to be filed as an attachment to those minutes. So I filed what I was presented with. And that was how I got it all, and you went collecting it, I think, for the most part for me, because we were on.
Well, I'm pretty sure that I presented you with attachments at the appropriate time.
Yes, you did.
The attachments that I thought, you know,
Yes.
were important to
Oh, I
the
have,
budget
there's a stack
process.
of them that are on the website, because it was a monster pile that I presented to her, because I never made extra copies, I just put it that, and I believe when I sent to all of you those minutes, I said, yeah, I'm not recopying or attaching any of this, it is on the website. I can go dig up that email, because I send you the minutes every time I file them. But she told me, you need to understand that they will be attached to the June 9th minutes, they will state that they belong with their information that was submitted late for the April 21st meeting, and that's where they go to, and that's what you've asked for. And then I said to her, she said, if Camille wants to understand it, please have her call me. So I told Camille to call her so we wouldn't have an argument.
So here's what we will do, because I don't believe we've ever spent this much time on approving meeting minutes. But there is a motion on the floor. If you'd like to amend that, Ann, I think it was your motion, to include the attachments gathered during the budget process to be attached to this evening's minutes. We will take a vote, and you are welcome to vote against that. Anybody here that doesn't feel comfortable with the process outlined by the town clerk can vote against doing it that way. Okay?
Okay, let me clarify one thing.
Sure.
What you're saying, Karen, and you, is once,
Madam
We have-
Chair,
Madam Chair,
you.
once we have a meeting, minutes are recorded, and they're given to town clerk, there can't be any, once the town clerk records them, there can't be any more additions to it.
But I think everything I'm hearing is people are misunderstanding. These are attachments. You have every opportunity, at least 7 days after the meeting, to get these to me so that they become a part of the record. They weren't even said that even in the Zoom meetings, but Camille forwarded me a ton of stuff that I was printing out so that I could attach what you saw on the website. You came up at the last meeting and said, hey, we were talking amongst ourselves and sending emails and you didn't get them. Well, you didn't give them to me.
Correct.
And that's
Correct.
attachments, that's not minutes.
I understand that they are attachments and not minutes. I'm just trying to rectify the situation, which is that we had meetings amongst ourselves by virtue of
Oh,
you know.
excuse me, no, we did not have meetings
We had
amongst
technical
ourselves.
meetings
No, we
amongst
did not.
ourselves by
No,
virtue of these
no,
emails.
no
Technical
decisions were made, nothing came up for discussion, it was simply dissemination of
If you would let
information.
me finish, please. These are technical meetings. By Freedom of Information rules, these are technical meetings. That's all I was trying to do, was to show that, yes, we had these because we did email, a form of communication amongst each other. We didn't have to even have discussion. And in fact, one of them has a point of discussion, by the way, so that's a true above and beyond meeting. So I just feel as though for the public's benefit, to understand the manner, the information that we had when we deliberated, and we had several sets of minutes to approve. When I saw that, I said, you know what, I think there's some other emails. And so there they are. It's not a ton, but I do think they were very important because they reflected those two major issues that we had during the budget, that being math coaches and police staffing. So I can't answer that legal question, and I'm not here to answer that legal question that Karen Galbo is speaking of. to me, it just makes common sense that they belong where they belong. And you have an unofficial set of minutes posted on your website. They don't become official minutes of the town until we have approved them. That's a temporary situation. So that's my thinking.
And I really have to say that these were not technical meetings. This was dissemination of information, and if you would refresh yourself with the Board of Finance's bylaws, it clearly states the difference between a technical meeting and dissemination of information. No decisions were made on these email exchanges. No opinions were given. Simple dissemination of
By
information.
technical meeting, I simply mean that there has been communication by a member to the rest of the board, and that's a technical meeting. Whether we did anything more than that, obviously not, except in one instance there was that situation. So that's all I'm talking about. This is not any kind of condemnation of anything we did. We were trying to do our job as board members in a COVID COVID situation where we didn't have the opportunity to come here and shuffle papers and hand papers to each other. So I'm just saying that they are technical meetings, and they are also of great substance, and they belong with the minutes of April 21st. And I'll end
I
it
think
there.
we are more than willing to accept the documents that you're presenting this evening for inclusion onto the town website. So I think at this point, we've discussed this enough. And I think that if Anne would like to amend her motion to include these documents, we can then just take a vote. If it passes, it passes. If not, we'll try it your way.
Want to make a motion?
Yeah,
Point of order, anyone can make a motion to
There
amend the
is a motion.
There is a motion, there's a second, no decision, no vote has been taken. So we would need to close this motion out or amend it before we entertained a
Anyone
second.
can amend it, not just the original person. If you want to put it on the table so you move on.
Yeah, I mean, I'll amend the current motion to reflect the approval of the minutes of April 21st to include 4 of the emails that we have discussed.
That's fine. I'll second that. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay, thank you.
Opposition,
Pardon?
opposed.
opposed.
Well, could you reread Ann Santoro's motion, Karen?
To include the 4 emails as discussed.
Right. It
She
doesn't.
said 4, I didn't know there were 4, but I guess, well, there's more than 4. Because I have this pile that you had sent me that you thought she had sent you,
Right.
but I didn't get, because it was part of a,
It's essentially.
it was part of a
I know.
group email amongst the board that I said I really don't want to be a part of anyways.
It's
So-
essentially 4, it's kind of 4 chains, we'll call them.
So the motion passes.
Yes.
5-1.
You said, could you restate your motion?
So I'm amending that first motion to read that motion to accept the minutes of April 21st, Board of Finance, 2021, to include attached to them of the
Okay, so
4
that's different.
the 4 emails that we have discussed.
So are you seconding? I mean, and you seconded everybody, it was different.
No, because that's different than what I heard the first time. Okay, but there is an amended motion. And I will not be supporting that because that was a little different than this time. Okay, all those in favor of Ann Santora's motion,
Who
please.
seconded it?
Seconded that.
I did, I seconded.
John Berman did, okay, here we go.
All those in favor, please say aye.
All right,
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay.
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 Motion fails 4-0, I think.
No,
Now you have the original motion.
No,
but it
about the
passed.
Original motion, no,
4-2.
Yeah.
no, failed.
So it just
It failed.
failed.
Oh, there was only
The-
2 people in favor of
The amended motion was reread,
Okay.
and
So 240
Yeah,
is what I,
240.
240. So Anne reworded her amended motion, which was different than the first
reneged on the
motion
second.
I didn't
she
reword
uttered.
it. I
Well,
did
we
not
can go to the
reword
tape,
it. I did
She
not.
added it.
but we won't.
And Peter will tell you, who even voted against me, that I didn't reword it.
Miscommunication.
Yes.
There's
Okay.
definitely miscommunication.
I think I was quite clear.
So the motion fails.
Okay.
Do we have another motion?
You have one on the table?
Go back
You have the original.
to the original
You can go back to the
motion.
original? Okay.
I would think back.
Can you reread your original motion, Anne, for the record?
I made a motion to approve the special meeting minutes of April 21st, 2021.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Abstain. Motion carries 5-1-0. Oh my God, that was exhausting. Okay.
So do you want any of this attached or just throw it out?
You can attack. You can, not that stuff, Karen. Whatever I sent you,
This is it.
scrap
Yeah, I
it.
put it here, that it was submitted to me on
So-
5/27.
I think this is what you need.
That's the other
Take,
part you want.
so rip up what I gave you and
All of
take,
it?
yeah.
Well, no, I can't because some of it's in Chicago.
Well, whatever I gave you, whatever I gave you, because it could be a duplicate.
Okay, you don't even want, this is Amy Burns stuff. It was a good piece, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, put it up there with tonight's meeting.
All right.
Or ask Karen, or whoever puts it up there.
Well, it's gonna go, that's what she said, that's
Yeah,
what she told me. She
right.
says, you have to understand that when you submit it, that's where it's going. It's
Right.
not going back somewhere.
Yeah.
I said, okay.
Okay, I think we're clear. All right, wow. Moving on to the regular meeting minutes of May 26, 2021.
I'll make a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of May 26, 2021.
Thanks, Ann Chicolo. Is there a second? I'll-
Second.
Thanks, John. Okay, all those in favor? Or first, any further discussion? Yes?
I'm sorry, and I'm sorry, Karen, but on page 2, where it was discussion about the special meeting of April 21st, and Ann Santoro had brought up missing documentation, I had made a statement that perhaps, and I'll emphasize the word perhaps, our recording secretary and our director of finance could be copied on these communications. Now, granted, you made the suggestion earlier in this meeting that we should just kind of seek the relevancy of what should be forwarded, but just to have it an accurate minute, I had looked for a solution that way so the documents wouldn't be missed.
I clearly recall you're making that statement
Yeah.
at the meeting.
And I understand Karen's point about foiable stuff and your aspect of relevancy, so
Yeah,
it doesn't need to be
I don't
acted
wanna be
upon.
part of it.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've been a part of enough of the FOI stuff with the land use department, I don't want any.
Oh, I understand.
Don't send me anything, just submit it to me in person. And make sure I get it, and then it'll be attached.
So,
Okay.
As
Do we
amended.
have-
As amended. Yeah.
as amended,
Yeah.
right. Okay, so we have the motion as amended with Mr. Steele's comment.
Yeah.
We have a second. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a motion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Motion carries 600. Okay. Now, next, we have our reports, starting with the Board of Education. Hi, Jeff. How are you?
How we doing? Okay. Just a few quick items just to share out. We've had a great end of the year. It's been very positive with all of our kids back. Graduation's right around the corner. We're on the field, and we've got the middle school first Monday night on the high school field, and then with a rain day to Tuesday, and then high school on Wednesday with a rain day to Thursday. So full in, and we've given 6 tickets to every family, so we're really looking forward to having a full group there. Excited about that. We got prom this weekend, and about 240 seniors coming to prom. So a lot of good things happening, that we're getting back to that new normal, which we're excited about, which is really good. We still have the same deficit, end of the year deficit, sitting at roughly $513,000 right now. So it's been consistent around that 500,000 mark. So that hasn't gone anywhere. Mariana's still a few encumbrances that are left we're working through, but it's probably going to land right around that 500,000 mark as we predicted. We are working on ARP funding and what we can use that money for. Our grant application is due in August for that. So we're still working through how we're going to allocate those funds. Around 370 or 328,000 is due to be used, has to be used for learning loss. So we have to apply that specifically for how we're going to help recovery with students. So we have some specific requirements, I guess I'll use, to how we use our funding and how we apply for that funding. So that's due in August, so we're still working through that and what we're going to be doing for the use of that 1.7 million, good for a couple of years as well. So we're trying to break that out and allocate it, but a lot of moving parts still with that. And the last piece, we have a reopening plan as well that's due to the state of Connecticut, and that's due June 23rd. So we just finalized and finished that. I just sent it out to the public. This is tied in with our ARP funding as well. We need to get public and school community feedback on that reopening plan. The plan is for full in-person learning, but there's going to be mitigation measures and strategies. I had to outline all of that in the reopening plan, which we'll send to the state prior to June 23rd, but we'll see what we get for parent community as well, or parent and community feedback as well. So that's about it for my report.
Okay.
All right.
Does anybody have any questions for the superintendent?
I do.
Yeah.
So with the ARP funding, the Treasury Department has issued additional regulations and more specificity with respect to how the money can be used. There's a Q&A and all of this. It's pretty elaborate. So are you I haven't looked at it on like Board of Education side. I've looked at it at like state government, local government side. So are you going through that same experience with them of additional information? Your first set of information was very specific, but I think they might be giving more guidance.
Ours all goes through the state, the Connecticut State Department of Education. So that's how we get,
So
and
you're
we have
getting
to,
it that
we have to go into our e-grants filing system with the state, and they have listed out all the requirements that we need, that were mandated to put in place in writing into that system.
Okay.
So that's where the direction we go.
Okay.
So you haven't heard anything else, have you, Mariana?
No, it's all within that, all the guidelines, everything's in.
Everything's in there.
Grants and
Yeah, just like ESSER funds, the
Right.
ESSER 2 funds that we
Okay.
had to do the same thing that we applied for.
Okay, so you're not having that same experience
No.
that the municipalities are having.
Correct, it's correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, that's great.
Yeah.
That's good for you. Then you know where and how to use the funding.
Yeah, we're pretty laid out as to how we can use those dollars.
Right.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
Anything
Any other
else?
questions?
Thanks.
All right, thanks, Jeff.
Yep.
With that, we'll move on to the first selectman.
I had a full list of things to talk about, but the hour's getting late. Those minutes are going flying by. So you have a very big agenda this evening. But I think most of these things that you are on your agenda this evening are things you've already talked about. We all talked about during the budget process. It's just the moving of the money and making the appropriations possible of the decisions we've already made. I will tell you, we're not having Celebrate East Lyme this year. You probably all heard about that. Getting a little feedback back from that because it feels like everything's done and we're having graduation. Why can't we have Celebrate East Lyme? The planning starts back in January, February. The biggest concern was with Sailfest being canceled. This would be the premier regional summer festival, and we don't have any possibility of crowd control, and our little town just couldn't handle it. Even if we cut the vendors back by 50%, which is my plan, you can't cut the people back by 50%. I think they'll all show up and the lines will just get longer to get hot dogs. The Lions Club is cutting back 50%. They're going to have their craft fair, and I hope you all come out and support them. They don't do the lobsters anymore. They're going to have a food truck thing.
Several food trucks will come. So come on out during the 4th of July weekend. And of course, the Lions do so many good things for our community, so go out and support them on that. American Rescue Fund. And she and I have talked a little bit about it, and Anna and I have spent hours on this. We thought we were getting ahead of it, right? We started talking, as soon as Biden signed the bill, we started talking about how we're going to spend the money. And we heard that the parameters were going to be, you can't spend it on operational, and we talked about that during budget. You can't spend it on pension, of course, and you can't stick it in your rainy day account, no undesignated fund balance. Go spend it. And we thought this is stimulating the economy. Since then, the U.S. Treasury has made a determination that really narrows our ability to spend it. Frankly, very disappointing. I have meetings with CCM that will start coming out with some seminars on this. There was one already, but the Council of Governments will be meeting next week on this and trying to brainstorm among the towns. Most of the freedom comes with infrastructure improvements, so water and sewer, sustainability, reliability, water, sewer, and broadband. Talking about making broadband accessible for all in public spaces and all that. That's really the kind of the big wide open umbrella. Everything else is feeding people, mental health, and very COVID-specific things. Vaccination clinics. But, I'm just sitting here going, boy, we're kind of beyond a lot of that, and this may have been really handy a year ago, 14 months ago, but we're kind of getting beyond that. So we have $5.4 million. $2.7 million is showing up any day now. And then the other 2.7 next year around this time. We'll have to spend it or determine how we'll spend it by December of 2024. I had a list of 30 or 40 items, included the Little League, the high school varsity baseball field to finally fix that correctly, and so many other things that we want to do in this town, open space, etc. And we're finding that we're going to take that list, put it aside, and kind of have a new brainstorming session with the Board of Selectmen and with other town leaders, etc. And we'll be presenting more of a comprehensive plan for you in July. So I had asked the chair, or through our finance director, to on your agenda tonight under new business, letter E, it says American Rescue, and you have I think an insert of about 8 or 10 items. We're not going to forward any of those items to town meeting. You can have the discussion, but we're not going to. Most of those will be scrapped. Some will stay. There's some emergency management stuff that we can utilize for, and of course the Zoom hybrid thing, very specific, COVID related. That's all I have tonight. I've been a little under the weather, so probably won't stay for your whole session tonight. I have department heads that are here and will be coming to explain anyway. And do you have any questions for me?
I do.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry. So I've been watching your Board of Selectmen meetings, and you've had different groups present.
Yeah.
Is all that off the table then, based upon what new information you've received?
Yeah, we did a lot of fact finding, right? Yeah. And we did a lot of reaching out to the community, and where, much like Jeff's going to, the Board of Ed and the public schools are going to have to do with their funding, is to reach out to the community for the needs. We tried to do that, thinking we had a little bit looser ability to spend the money. We're going to pull back on that and then start over. The Karen shares and the Giving Garden, they're directly related to food insecurity. We do have mental health, an idea that this board's heard before with the youth services upping their the game a little bit, like other towns have. Mental health support. We'd like to add that in for about 4 years until the money is gone. We won't make that a permanent position. And there's a couple things there. We'll bring all that to you with great detail.
Okay, thank you.
Mark, I did have a question. So the last time we talked about the ARP money, we were talking about receiving a figure of 1.9 maybe by the end of this month, and then maybe 6 months later, another 1.8 for a total of 3.7. So can you explain how we got from 3.7 to 5.4? Is that the regionalization distribution?
Yeah, so it's the county money that we just took. I took a calculator, 260,000 people in New London County divided by 18,000 in town, and came up with a number. But when the numbers were actually released, it's even more. So it's that bigger figure. We knew right away the 1.9 number because that had East Lyme's name on it. And actually that changed too along the way when we finally got the final number. It's just, it's government, man.
Is that something that we applied for, or is that
No.
something that was allocated to us?
Allocated by an
Some
act of
other
Congress and
Hartford
signed.
Formula.
Yeah, it's just federal government. And so the Treasury thing took us for a big surprise. But the same thing happened with the PPP loans, where the government went out and just threw a bunch of money out there, and then the IRS said, oh, by the way, it's going to be treated as income and you're going to be taxed. And then they negotiated something. But it seems like one department sends out the money, the other department decides if they can or not, or how it will be spent. This is what's going on now. I bet there'll be some loosening of the funding. My guess is they will loosen it up. I think they're getting a lot of feedback that way. I don't know the final number on New Haven. I'm dying to look it up. I'll do that next. The initial number was $190 million. One town, one city. Imagine all the cities in the country. What are they going to do with COVID relief for $190 million? They're going to have to loosen it up. And if they want this money in the economy, that's why they're doing it. And
Which is a good reason to postpone this, if they're going to loosen
absolutely.
these
So-
restrictions up. I
well,
mean,
that too. We're not in a rush to spend it.
Yeah, that's
We're going to
great.
do it right.
So the other thing I'm wondering, based on the presentation that we had tonight on the POCD, I know that Saunders Point was a big issue at one time,
Yeah.
getting sewers in there, the
Yeah.
expense of it all. Has this come up in your conversations at all, Saunders Point?
Yeah, Saunders Point, there's many, many projects with the water and sewer. We did talk about reopening, looking at Saunders Point. If we took all the $5.4 million, it would put a dent in the project. I don't still think it would make an affordable situation, but we might want to look at that again. At this time, it was over $30,000 a house to hook up to the sewers. Down there, when normally you're looking for $16,000 to $18,000. So it was almost double to run sewers in Saunders Point.
Wow.
That was the problem. And we did
So,
everything we could to make it work.
Not that ARP funds could fund the entire project, but maybe to subsidize it.
It could
a little
subsidize
bit.
it.
I
And
mean,
could you
that'd
bring
be
the
worth
cost?
That would be worth looking into.
Could you bring the
certainly.
cost down? Yeah, we're looking at that. So it's possible. We have to build a new pump station at Rocky Neck to accommodate the old Lyme sewers coming in. They're paying for much of it, but we'll have a piece of it as well. And there's some other. We have an aging infrastructure of water and sewer. The money might be coming at a good time, frankly. And although it only serves a portion of the population, it does support everybody's taxes to have the water and sewer department systems up and running, especially good for our economy, and our industry.
Okay, that's all I have.
Any other questions? Have a good one.
Okay, thanks, feel better. Next, let's hear from our finance director.
You can sit there. I just did what. Have to stay there.
So, as you all know, you all had the audit from June of last year this evening distributed to you, and there are also 2 audit communications in your green folders. In addition, in your green folder were the draft motions for the bond resolutions. Today, we had a bond refunding, and we are realizing about $755,000 in budget savings, and we plan to take most of the budget season savings in fiscal years 24, 25, and 26. Those are peak years that we identified with our debt service. So in order to get ahead of it, we opted to delegate that. We take some bigger savings of the total savings in those years. So prior to the refunding, the average coupon rate was 3.1%, and with the refunding, 2.55%. So that's about a 7.4% savings that we realized, which is, we're pleased about that.
Mm-hmm.
I also received word today that the state adopted the budget, and they were expecting the Senate to also adopt it. And in reviewing the information that CCM disseminated, the revenues as the changes that the Board of Finance made at your April meeting are all still intact. A couple of side notes: the new tiered pilot program, it stated that they don't have the final numbers yet. While they're still staying with the number that they provided to us back in April, it may change somewhat. And then the other item that I noticed, a piece of information, is that with the education cost sharing money for communities that were going to receive a reduction, they held us harmless. So they're projecting the $6 million rather than the 5.8 that we actually have in the budget. So more to come on that one. And then Mr. Nickerson also already went over, the American Rescue Funds. We were required to submit our application on the state portal for our portion of the $2.7 million by 5 p.m. today. So don't know how we're going to spend it yet, but we had to submit the application. So that was, done on behalf of the town. I do know that the state has our entitlement portion. They haven't actually received the county funds yet. So once they receive the county funds, their plan is to, transfer the funds to us. You received your monthly reports in your packets. I'm happy to say that our results at the end of the year are estimated to be good. At the end of March, our revenues were a little bit questionable, but we had good months in April and again in May. So we'll end out the year actually not using any of the assigned fund balance that we applied to our budget.
That's fantastic.
Wow.
Fantastic.
Very good.
And actually, I'll just mention this quickly. When I was reading through the documentation on use of the American Rescue Funds, we would be in a position to consider using some of that funds to restore the fund balance that we applied to our budget.
Wow.
And however, anything that you do, you have to be able to, what we would have to do is I would have to go back, I'm not sure if it's 2 or 3 fiscal years, and look at the total revenue picture and then go forward and be able to provide evidence and documentation that, supported the increase that we made in that year and then the decreases in subsequent years. So it's kind of interesting and more to be discussed on that issue, I'm sure.
Anna, in the entire time that you've been employed as the finance director, have you ever seen an estimated unassigned fund balance at 12.1% of the operating budget before? Is that the highest we've ever projected?
I believe so. I really do, yes.
Yeah.
And actually, on the update that I did this month, I used the adopted budget for 21-22 for that percent. It's not this year's budget because we're really looking at going forward at this point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's fantastic. Thank you. Well, we're in great shape. Soon to be better shape. Anything else? Any questions for the finance director? Okay.
Oh, actually, I do. Anna, will we have any sort of, bond rating review coming up? I mean, we're in better situation than previously.
Well, so actually, to do the refunding, we had to do a bond rating, and they affirmed the rating that we had. In order to get an upgrade, we would really have to, keep our fund balance level at the high level that it is, show some more continuity, because really, we're just getting to that level during the last 2 years. Before that, it's been lower, and we actually had 6/30/20 and 6/30/19. We actually had very good operating surpluses at the end of the year. But in the prior years, it was much tighter. So,
Okay. Well, that's positive. I mean, if we can extend over time and continue in the
so
same.
so the rating agency's going to look to see that trend continued before they look at considering us for an upgrade.
Thank you.
You want to talk about the bond sale today?
I already did.
I'm sorry, I missed it. It was such big news. I was looking up New Haven. You don't want to know. The budget was $28 million. What?
Okay. If there's no further questions for the finance director, we can move on to the bonding resolutions. Starting with the Board of Education various projects for $1,017,000. Pretty much, as Anna had previously mentioned, all of these bonding resolutions are exactly what we had just approved when we went through the budget process, and the CIP was approved at a town meeting. But this is actually moving the funds into place where they can be utilized when necessary. That's what these are about, and to authorize the town to go out and actually bond for these projects. So would the Board of Ed like to, let me ask it this way, would anybody from the Board of Finance like the Board of Ed to come up and explain the projects before us this evening for $1,017,000? I know that Mr. Lund was present at the Board of Selectmen meeting going through the list.
He's on vacation today. I'm happy to run through them quick.
That would be,
if you'd like.
I think,
for the public,
yeah,
anybody's watching,
I think we have a different audience.
No, it's all everything that
Yeah.
you received and you've heard, but for the public, let me run through them quickly, and so we're aware. So we're specific to the high school and the middle school for all of our capital items. At the high school, we start off with $150,000 for air handler. We're beginning a cycle of air handler replacements. They are at their final life expectancy, and we're just trying to prioritize over the next, really 8 to 10 years, starting a replacement cycle and process for the ones that are on the roof. So that's the first one. There's some sidewalk, archway, and exterior concrete repairs also at the high school. These are specific to around the athletic area. We've got crumbling where sidewalks meet and things that need to be, their safety issues, which we need to repair, and looking to do that. Some additional building exterior masonry repairs, brick repairs, and there's some pictures and things that you had viewed in the CIP information that Mr. Lund had delivered. Parking lot, driveway, repaving, maintenance repairs, specific to really that whole complex of the high school, Flanders School, all around the athletic complex. $75,000 for that. A-wing, the high school A-wing window replacement, beginning to investigate and design what we might need to be doing for window replacements. So we're looking at that piece. Also, exterior door replacements, developing, investigating, designing a plan for begin to replace doors. Again, our elementary schools are all set. We're starting to move on now to some issues at the high school building that we need to start focusing on some fixes there. The gym parapet wall replacements, that's around the south gym, which is connected to the pool up at the top. It's all peeling. We're doing it in 2 stages. I think it's the southeast side is first. That's what was visible from the field. It's in terrible shape. It's a true embarrassment. We need to get that fixed, all scraped down. blasted and then repainted. And we do the first half and then the second half the following year. Roof line extension. So we got some roof projects both at the high school and the middle school. And what this is really is to extend the life of the roofs out another 20 years by being able to put down a new membrane, rubber membrane. So it's not a full roof replacement. What we're trying to do is avoid that. And by being able to put down this membrane, it'll save our roof, extend our roof lives out, which would be a real good thing and a savings for all of us rather than have to replace them. It involves at the high school, obviously, removing the solar panels and then putting them back on. So fairly big project, but again, it's going to extend the life of the roofs both in the high school and the middle school. And then when you move to the middle school, the only other thing other than those roof life extension projects is HVAC air handlers at the middle school. That building is over 20 years old now, believe it or not, and we have air handler replacements as well that we're looking to do some mechanicals and replacements on. So those are the items in total, and any questions that?
I appreciate you detailing those items for us again. I did have one quick question with regard to the solar panels on the roof.
Yep.
What is those were purchased some years ago, correct?
Yes,
what's the
oh boy.
age?
What years are they now? About, we still have 10, about 10 years old, 10 to 12 years old, I think it is. Is it older than that?
Well,
I thought it was, I've been here 7 years now. They've been on there much longer than I.
Zoning, here for 12.
Yeah. And
I bet it's 15, I bet it's 14.
it might be 14 years now that they've been on there.
It seems like a long time, and that's old technology. Do you think that
Yeah.
there's more efficient solar panels available now? And I was just curious if you had discussed at a Board of Education meeting, maybe replacing them with some of the ARP funds?
Well, we're locked in, right? Yeah, we're
You're
locked.
locked in?
We met when I first started, and we're locked in order to get out of it, it would be pretty costly.
Yeah.
Do you know how long you're locked in for?
20 years.
20.
It's a 20-year agreement.
So taking the old panels off and putting the same exact old panels back on?
Yes,
Okay. All right.
done in stages, obviously. The good thing, I mean, they're only up there and being held by cement blocks. So the cement blocks would come off, and then obviously you need to remove them to another section, do the roof, and then put them back.
Yeah.
So it'd be done in stages.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does the solar company, do they remove them? I mean, is that partially
I
for
don't know if they-
liability? Because then if something happens, they're going to say, well, we didn't remove them, so we're not responsible.
They would be
for
part
them.
of the, if I remember from what Chris Lund said, they would be part of the process and the discussion. I don't know if they would specifically be the ones that would be removing them. We'd probably have a separate, vendor take care of that, for us. But we have to be careful not to damage them,
Yeah.
as well. But, so that's, I can get some further information on those if you want to send it to you. I can talk to Chris, because I know he's been working on that. We're not doing that project right away. That would be later on.
Okay.
Really probably the following summer.
No further information dissemination required.
Okay, all right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Yeah.
Just a clarification, air handlers, you said that's one step in a longer process.
Exactly.
This is a huge.
Yes, yeah. Chris is starting to map, well, he's trying to map out so we don't get hit with having to replace 4 or 5 at once. We wanted to try and start doing maybe 1 a year sort of thing over the next 8 to 10 years. So he's prioritizing their age.
Okay, so 8 or 10 years.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. So we just get them on a cycle of replacement, yeah. Yep. You're welcome.
Any further questions on the bonding request from the Board of Education? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Resolved that the resolution entitled Resolution Making Appropriations Aggregating $1,017,000 for various Board of Education capital improvements and authorizing the issuance of $1,017,000 bonds of the town to meet said appropriations and pending the issuance thereof, the making of temporary borrowings for such purpose, a copy of which is attached hereto, is hereby adopted and recommended for approval by the legal voters of the town at town meeting. We waive reading the resolution in its entirety as it is on file in the town clerk's office.
Thanks, Ann. Do I have a second?
Also,
Thanks, Pete. Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, Motion carries 600. Okay,
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay, have a good night. Moving on to the next bonding request. This is for the Niantic Fire Department pumper in the amount of $680,000.
Good
evening,
evening.
Chief. How are you?
Good.
Chief Barone from
Correct.
Niantic Fire Department.
The money we're seeking is to replace a 1991 pumper. NFPA standards for apparatus recommend that apparatus greater than 15 years old that haven't been maintained and are still serviceable should be placed in a reserve status. In other words, use it occasionally, but not on front line. Anything 1901 also states that any apparatus over 25 years old should be replaced. We're going on 30 years with this truck. It's been a great truck. We've had relatively few problems with it, but the time has come, the technologies have come. So that's where we're at. We currently have committee together to formulate the truck, what should be on it. It's basically not going to be more than what we have on our trucks now. There's one parked outside if you want to look at it right now. Happy to go over it with you.
Field trip.
The sad part is the prices have gone up. There's no question about that. We don't have any control over that, but the technologies have changed, and with that, the prices of those technologies have changed, and unfortunately, that's what a truck's costing now. Once we get the committee together and go over the electronics, what's going to be on it, it's not anything that we don't have right now, but things wear out. So that's where we're at. Yeah.
Just a quick question.
Sure.
So as far as you know, it's not going to be more than 680,000?
No.
Thank you.
Okay, and for the record, we have a rather lengthy bonding resolution on file. Is there any other further documentation that we can include with this resolution before it goes to the town meeting?
I don't have, other than the statistics that I have here. I mean, NFPA is a recommendation, obviously. It's not a law, but fire departments tend to go by that because if you get dragged into court by the thing, they're going to look at that. We actually have a guy on the committee, he's in the department, who worked for NFPA for many years. So we've got a lot of good people that have a lot of good ideas about what to put on these trucks. And like I say, we are not looking to reinvent the fire truck. We're just looking to replace a piece of equipment that has seen its life, and that's where we're at.
Will we get any, is there any scrap value to the truck in the parking lot right now?
Well,
how does that work?
The last truck, the person that was dealing the truck offered us $2,500 for it. We held on to it for another not quite a year and sold it for $9,000. So, and those people were happy to get it, wanted to know if we had another one. So there are places, I can remember we got rid of a 1962 one. As a matter of fact, we loaded it on a truck over at the lumberyard on their loading dock, and that went to someplace down in New Mexico, and they also were thrilled to get it. So the reality is that there are places in the country that they're happy to use that equipment. The reality here is if we try and fix it, it's too expensive. If we try, we have liability on the thing if it's too old and we try and fix it, which I won't go there because I'm great for that, but we do our best to keep them going good and in repairable order. Every year the pumps are gone through. That's a requirement, and we do DOT checks on them. And if there's something wrong, we fix it.
Well, I will say that we appreciate, the upkeep that you do on the vehicles, and I think that you do get an extended life out of all of these vehicles, and this is the reality. I mean, they have a certain life, and we're beyond the certain life.
I mean, you could throw $400,000 at it and rebuild it and have it somewhat like new, but the reality is it's not going to last as long as with warranties and new technologies that would be on it relative to a lot of it's the electronics and the safety features that come on the truck. I don't have any control over that.
Okay. Well, thank you for the presentation and the information.
Anybody has any questions at any time, you're welcome to call me at any time.
Now's the time to ask the questions.
One more quick question. I know due to COVID that it's very difficult now to get cars because of computer chips. Are you having difficulty finding a fire truck?
We don't know that. No, we can get a fire truck. It's just that the time frame, and I think that I stated at the last meeting that there's potential that it'd be 2 years before we see this truck.
Okay.
Well, that's a negotiation too. Believe me, that becomes part of it. We had great success with at least 2 of the trucks, including the one we're trying to replace, where the town actually paid up front for the chassis and owned the chassis while the truck was being built, and they saved significant money. The ladder truck was that way too. And because the manufacturer didn't have to lay out money to own that chassis during the time that the truck was being built. And the biggest question was, well, what happens if the guy goes broke? Well, you hold title to the chassis, you go take it to the next guy down the road that'll build you a fire truck. So it's not a real, but they don't want to lay out money either, so. And the COVID issue, I think the biggest thing is the supply chains of parts that they need to get. I mean, that's the biggest drawback.
Very good. Okay. Any questions for the chief? Any further questions? If not, I'll call for a motion.
Resolved that the resolution entitled Resolution Making an Appropriation in the Amount of $680,000 for the acquisition of a new fire engine and authorizing the issuance of $680,000 bonds of the town to meet said appropriations and pending the issuance thereof, the making of temporary borrowings for such purpose, a copy of which is attached hereto, is hereby adopted and recommended for approval by the legal voters of the town at town meeting. We waive reading the resolution in its entirety as it is on file in the town clerk's office.
Thanks, Ann. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Ann Santoro. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries 600. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. Okay, moving right along. I see we have Mr. Burgaw here. He's going to talk to us about the $850,000 bonding resolution for roads and sidewalks.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Yes, this road bond work, townwide roads and sidewalks, is something we've been doing every year. The number had been around $850 for a number of years. Yeah, hopefully you have this kind of detail. So this is the right now we're in the 3rd year of a 5-year program that I did, and it's a living document. I always got to look at this thing. So we have a lot of detail here, and I don't expect you to go all into stuff, but it goes down all the roads that we're in. The construction season for us, as far as the work, doesn't really coincide very well with the bonding process because we got this work scheduled, so hopefully it goes through, because, I mean, we're looking to do this work in July, and, we're right at the cusp, but you're going to also start seeing, because of COVID last year, we put a lot of the work off because I had no idea what the availability of contractors or people. So you're going to see a lot of construction going on in town in the next few weeks. That's this fiscal year. in another month, next fiscal year. So a lot of stuff's going on, and it's all right in here. So we're moving forward. The different treatments, it's the second column, fiscal year 21-22, goes over all the different projects that we're working. I also have next year's too. We'll take a look at that if there has to be some adjustments next year. But one of the key things, and it was brought up in past years, but even though we're asking for 850, it actually lists us as having 1.19, and a key part of that is that there's an element of $340,000 and $837 in Town Aid Road that's also lumped into the pile. So we do about $1.2 million worth of work. So we're gearing up to do that, and hopefully this moves forward so we can continue forward with our schedule. So if I have any questions, I'd like to answer.
Are these in the order of priority? Are these projects in the order of
No,
priority?
they're listed in groupings of treatment, of the treatment, like the colored, the light greenish is like a Cape Seal. We've been doing a lot. That's more of a more cost-effective solution. It's the chip seal, and then you put the microsurfacing above it. The kind of, I guess you could call it magenta. Last year we were at 850 in the budget because it was a tough year, and we understood it got cut for this number got cut 350,000. So we cut out Dean Road and Grassy Hill. It's back. So we're looking to do those this year. And Dean Road we hear a lot of complaints upon. It's a heavily traveled. We're going to look at the width. We're not looking to widen it as a thoroughfare, but it's a very variable width. We're going to try to have a uniform width through there. It's nice. It's not prioritized on roads. It's prioritized on the treatments because that's how I have it organized.
But within the light green, for example, within the grouping of Cape Seals, I mean, is that prioritized, starting with Wildwood, or this is not?
No, they're
so if somebody were to ask us a question.
Yeah, they're not. They're actually bundled by where they are in town. Wildwood, Indian Rock, Barone, Pleasant Drive Extension are all in the same neighborhood. Fairhaven Road is its own. Francis Lane's an Old Black Point Road. Hopkins is off of Society, Kevin Road. So it's kind of bundled. I mean, so there's not a the listing of it is based on how I have it bundled. It's not a priority, but it's all going to be done together. There is actually a rating. You call it like 20 rating. So I guess you could call it the priority. The lower the number, the worse the road is. But there's a lot of information on this sheet.
Yeah.
If there's any questions.
I have one. There's 3 different methods here.
Correct.
Working on the roads. Can you just clarify?
Well, actually, this
Chip seal, Cape seal.
Yeah, the light green is
Reclaim.
the light. There's four actual treatments here. There's the Cape Seal, which is the light green. Those are all the ones that have the treatment of the chip seal, and then we come back, we sweep it up, and then we come back about a month later, and we put this top surface on it. That's what we do more in the neighborhoods and stuff like that. The CIPR is a cold in place recycle, so Dean Road will be a fresh paved road. What we do is we rejuvenate. It's a good recycling process. The machine goes in and basically mills out 3 to 4 inches of the pavement, and it puts it back down, and then you let it sit for a few months, and then you pave on top of it, so that you don't. It's just a great way to rejuvenate a road. That's what we're going to do for Dean Road. Grassy Hill is a green color. That's going to be a straight chip seal. It's in the country. A lot of the country roads. That's a much more suitable, and it also gives a lot of traction on those roads. But when there's a number of $100,070 that's in that extra prep work. When you go around, kind of just past Walnut Hill Road, there's a pond out there, and there's an S curve right there. We got to do something. I can't put chip seal on that. I got to do some work. So that's a chip seal, and then the blue ones. I guess lighter blue you'd want to call it, the Whitney subdivision, Whitney Lane, Whitney Circle, and Winchester are actually they're actually roads off of Dean Road, and that's going to be reclaimed. So they go in and grind the road up, and then it's a full reconstruction. So those are the 4 different treatments, and they're basically in different colors, and obviously there's different costs associated with those. So we keep track of that.
Thanks.
The big work, the big roads, if you hear or anyone asks, the Dean Road, Grassy Hill, and all those things are going to be done next spring, because there's just no way we can jam all that work in this year. So we're going to prep Dean Road this fall and have it ready for next spring, is our plan.
Yep.
Any further questions? Hearing none, I'll call for a motion.
Resolved that the resolution entitled Resolution Making an Appropriation in the Amount of $850,000 for the rehabilitation of various town roads and authorizing the issuance of $850,000 bonds of the town to meet said appropriation and pending the issuance thereof, the making of temporary borrowings for such purpose, a copy of which is attached hereto, is hereby adopted and recommended for approval by the legal voters of the town at town meeting. We waive reading the resolution in its entirety as it is on file in the town clerk's office.
Thanks, Ann. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, John. Further discussion? I just want to say thanks, Joe. Thanks for the detailed information that you provided to us this evening. Okay, with that, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 600. Thank you. Okay. I'd like to press on to 9 without a break. If we're going much further, we can take a 5-minute break at 9. So next up is a special appropriation for the CNRE accounts. There's an annual subsidy of $137,880. Should we call the first selectman back in, Anna, or can you address this?
Yeah, I'd be happy to address it. So, as you know, this is part of the budget process. This is a subsidy that we budget for in the general fund, and it is transferred into the CNRE and put in the different categories as itemized for you on the agenda item. So this is going through the process to appropriate those funds in the CNRE fund.
Okay, does anybody have any questions regarding this appropriation? Okay, if there are no further questions, I'll call for a motion.
I move to approve a special appropriation for the following projects in CNRE Fund 32, which are consistent with the 2021/2022 capital improvement plan.
Thanks, Ann. Is there a second?
Which are town project roofs for $10,000, HVAC replacement townwide $15,000, East Lyme Waterford boat motor $8,500, townwide sidewalk repairs $10,000, townwide servers $5,000, revaluation $85,380, CAD software and survey equipment $4,000 for a total of $137,880. And no town meeting is needed.
A town meeting is.
Oh, a town meeting is needed, sorry.
Okay. So, any appropriation over $10,000, it requires a town meeting. Okay, thanks, Ann. And did I see a second from somebody?
I'll second.
Thanks, Ann. Okay, any further discussion? I'd just like to comment that I see the wisdom of bringing these requests before us so soon after the budget process closes, because it's all fresh in our minds. It's helpful. All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 600. Next up, we have the Fire Marshal Knox box for $8,370. And we have Mr. Way making his way to the podium. Good evening.
Good evening. So, thank you for having me. Just a little background. This is a little larger version of what's called a Knox box. It's a company, Knox, out of Arizona. And basically it's a miniature vault. And it provides first responders immediate access to a commercial building, residential building, or even people's homes. The residential ones are a lot smaller. But basically it's a miniature vault that we can have access keys to get in, maybe for a fire emergency or a medical. Maybe the fire department, there's somebody in the house, and rather than having to break the door down, they can use the key to access the building. and they're frequent throughout town. So what we're looking to do is just to shore up the accountability of the keys. So the reason for the purchase is to replace the lock cylinders, so we have accountability for all the master keys for the town. So, and what we would do is our department would, myself and the two part-time people that I have, would replace, as we go through with the inspections, replace the lock cylinders. So, and this is just basically it's a small miniature vault, and again, it's a, I'll bring it up to the front if you want. It's a, they're all basically the same style.
If you want to just go around.
I can do that too. So, it basically bolts to the side of the building. Some, they make some that can get like new buildings that can recess the box. So, and as you can see there, this box probably weighs about 25 pounds.
Yeah, you're struggling.
No, it's nice a little rubber, but, and then this one has a two key system, most of them have a single key. And then the only way you get the keys is by, they would call the dispatcher, and they would get either a code, a radio tone, or they would give the dispatcher would give them a code so that they could open the box. And then when they're done with it, they just radio dispatch back that the key is secured. So that helps maintain the integrity of the program.
Okay.
So, can I?
Yes.
So the $8,000 is not for the lock boxes itself, it's for the lock
The
cylinders.
lock cylinders, yes.
And it's determined that the program lacks secure accountability, resulting in the need to replace.
The lock cylinders.
I'm not sure what that means.
When I became the Knox Box coordinator, I went through to find out where all the keys were, and there's not a firm accountability of them. Because, so I went to the first selectman and to the finance director, said, we have an issue, we need to resolve it so that obviously we can maintain accountability for the boxes. So when I spoke with the company, they said there's a couple different options. The most economical option is to replace the lock cylinders. There is an E-key system now, but it's about close to $60,000. And as soon as I heard that price, I'm like, forget it. That's not something that we, yes, I like the 8,000 a lot better too. So imagine, and it requires just regular tools and not anything special. And just a matter of time as we go through doing the building inspections, we can change the cylinders out.
Shoring up the system that's already.
Yes.
You said this is both for commercial and residential buildings?
Yes.
So is this like for new houses then? That are
Nope,
being-
it's actually, it's, for residential, it's optional. For commercial, we can ask the business owner to have the boxes installed. It is part of our codes to have that. And also, again, it gives the police and the fire department access. In case of emergency, if you took like a strip mall type building, we may have a gas leak and they have to enter multiple businesses, rather than having to wait for a key holder at 2 in the morning, the fire department can access the box, get the business keys. Because a typical door for a business, the glass doors that we go in and out of every day is about $1,000. The doors, and I'm trying to encourage the Rocky Neck Village project, their doors are actually made in Lithuania, and they're about $1,400 a door. So, and they're very expensive. I'm speaking with the developer now, and encouraging them that if the fire department, not necessarily a fire in an emergency, but if they have an occupant down and they can see them through the glass, rather than having to literally destroy the door, they can just go and access the key and gain access that way. And then if they happen to take the person to the hospital, they can resecure the property and then leave.
I had some follow-up questions, because I was going to poke along the same lines with the residents.
Yep.
So are you talking basically apartment residents and multi-family housing units?
Anybody can have one. Again, a single-family home can have a box.
Right.
And the way they could do that, they can just request one through the company, and then we would see the approval. Our office would get an email if they wanted to have a box, but it's not a requirement for residential.
Right. There's no code that says any
No.
resident has to, it's
Nope.
purely optional if the resident wants it, and it could
Yes.
even be for single-family homes. But
Correct.
this amount of money is not going to replace those cylinders in any residential home, correct? Because I would
Right.
imagine the homeowner would pay for that?
Right now, I don't have any if we do have some residential boxes, I would have to look. I don't have those on my list. All the ones that I have right now are either commercial or town-owned buildings.
Okay.
And we've got over 200 of them,
Right.
approximately. But again, I'm still working through with the company because the list only goes back to 1991, according to the Knox company, and they don't have any records before that time. So as we go along, as we replace them, if we find additional, which I'm hoping not to, then we may have to come back for more money, but it's going to be
Okay,
determined.
if I may just rephrase my question a little bit, because the appropriation request is to secure location for the town, schools, business owners, and residents. So I'm thinking the $8,370 is mostly for municipal buildings, town-owned building. Wouldn't commercial owners pay for their own box
Well,
and equipment?
Because the town has required the boxes to be there, it's really on us. And this program has existed for years.
I was going to, yeah, okay, so I was going to say, are certain people grandfathered into not having it, or?
No, there's no grandfather clause. The reason that's in the code is to provide access for emergency
Right.
services.
So all businesses in town have this knock box?
Not all of them have them yet.
Okay.
But as we go forward, we're encouraging them. I mean, and as the fire marshal, I highly encourage that they do that, because a lot of times, it, again, allows people access, and actually it's without having to break the door. And again, a lot of times, they have to use their judgment in an emergency situation.
Right.
But again, most of the commercial doors are over $1,000, and the cost of a box is a lot cheaper.
Which we are not responsible for if we do knock down a door, because there's an imminent danger or threat.
Again, that would have to be determined between, that might be a civil issue. I don't know. I wouldn't get into that side of it. But by having the access, then they don't have to do that damage to the door.
Okay.
Do you publicize this to the residents that they can have it? I've just never heard of it until now.
Well, we're in the process of redoing the website, so it is an option to the residents that we could, put out there, that it is an option to have that for access to their homes. A lot of properties that have, not in East Lyme, but other towns, if they have a long driveway, they might have a box at the gate, so that the fire department, if they access the property, they could go into the box, get an access code, maybe not even a physical key, and just have that key code, and be able to punch it in, and then access the property.
Okay.
Okay. Any further questions? No? All set? Okay, I'll call for a motion.
I move to approve a special appropriation in the amount of $8,370 from CNRE Fund 32, account number 32-70-300-500-999, parentheses, townwide projects, and parentheses, to an account to be established entitled, quote, Knox Box Cylinders, end quote. This project is consistent with the 2020/2021 capital improvement plan. And I'm assuming no town meeting is required because it's under $10,000? Okay.
Very good. Thanks, Ann. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Motion carries 600. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Have a good evening.
Yes, too.
All right. With that, we are moving on to a special appropriation for a LoCIP project in the amount of $85,000.
Yes, so as you're aware, LoCIP is a state grant. I believe we get $118,000 a year. Comes in March of so this coming up year's money for fiscal year 21-22 will come to us in March of next year. So it's a running total. So we've had a lot of projects. One of the projects was the town ceilings, which I don't know if you noticed, but that was one of the things that we went around the town hall, and when we did all that, we changed all the heating system, and actually there's half the amount of lighting in here now. So these are kind of improvements that we try to do, and what I have in the list, you have to put these projects into your capital projects to have the projects be able to approved and reimbursed. So the three that I have on here, town-wide parking lots, is because we're trying to keep up with it. 2 years ago, we did town hall and community center. We're looking at Bridebrook is getting pretty rough, so I'm looking to move forward with that. We're also the area down by Cheney Park. The actual parking lot itself is fine, but the from 156 all the way to under the bridge is actually, I consider that as a parking lot, because so that's not really in my town plan. So looking to address that. and also the McCook's lower lot. So that identifies that amount. There's one more process if this does get approved, is then I give the paperwork to Anna and she submits it to OPM and they have to approve the project, and then once it's a eligible project, we can get reimbursed for it. The two others, Maine's a town-owned dams. We did a lot of work. If you've been up the Darrow Pond Way, we actually did half the dam. There's a big inspection that we had to, we're responsible for all the work, especially downstream. There was trees in the dam, that's bad. There's the slope wasn't correct. There was a lot of work that our town engineer Victor Benny worked on, and this 15,000 will help finish the other side of it. And the town-owned bridge and culvert repairs is really a placeholder. I don't have any specific. I know we had work to do on the Fairhaven Road, the railing stuff, but this is more of a placeholder. If something comes up in mid-year, I have a funding source through LoCIP to do it, and it's already approved in the budget. So I don't have a specific one on the 10,000, but it allows us, by you guys authorizing that, it allows us to have money available through LoCIP to do it. So those are the three projects I have in this year. And just one last question, one last comment is, I did say that we get 118,000 a year, and this is 85 because it's a running total, so I don't have to do 118 every year. We had still haven't got the air handlers finished here because it would cost me more. So some projects need a little more money to do. So I just keep a running total of what the LoCIP is and work with Anna Johnson and fund it through OPM. So that's why the two numbers, the 118 and the 85, don't match up. If you had that question.
I did not, but thank you for the clarification. Any questions for Mr. Bucca? If not, I'll call for a motion.
Move to approve a special appropriation in the amount of $85,000 to be used as follows: $60,000 townwide parking lot repair / resealing, $15,000 maintenance of town-owned dams, and $10,000 town-owned bridge / culvert repairs, with the source of funds being the LoCIP program and accounts to be established, titled with a state project number. These projects are consistent with the 2020/2021 capital improvement plan. A town meeting is needed.
Thanks, Ann. Do I have a second? Thanks, Pete. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Thank you. Motion carries 600.
Thank you.
I think we can finish without having a break. Next up is a public safety contingency special appropriation for $17,110.
I'm going to discuss this one as well. That's why I'm standing here. It's not like I have nowhere else to go. But, and by the way, I'm not sure if because is this your first live meeting, or did you have one?
No, we had.
Oh,
No,
okay.
like
Well, I
a
just
second.
said you can, because I was watching my office from YouTube live in this meeting. It's a great technology. Very, very easy to know. I mean, because you're at the meetings, you don't know that, but it's very accessible now for the public, because not everyone might have Channel 22, but everyone has YouTube,
Right.
and you can watch it live, so I knew exactly when to come up. I kept working.
Yeah, I was wondering. I thought,
I was watching on YouTube. I was trying to catch up on work. So,
a text.
so
right?
with that point, so with this, I'm sorry. I wish you could do this well, but it's available. So in the current fiscal year, as you recall, I mean, this was the transition year of that public safety building, and we didn't know, like, we still had to pay for utilities and stuff like that, so we weren't sure when they were going to be moving in. There was $58,000 put in town contingency. Well, we're 3 weeks left from the year. I brought my IT staff and, well, my IT person and the building maintenance people over to the new building to take a tour. And, it's hard when you look at a piece of paper. You can kind of get a feel for it, but there's a lot of stuff there. So what this was doing is trying to, get ahead of it instead of getting behind it, because they still haven't even moved in yet as far as what all the intricacies of all the stuff like that. So what we're proposing is there was money in the 58. Anna was using some of the money for electric, propane, and some other stuff. But what we were trying to do is trying to get a good commercial vacuum cleaner, a good flooring machine, because as I told you before, from a custodial, and I'm still even a little concerned with the number of bathrooms, the locker rooms, the cells, and so that of keeping it to the level of service that we want to do and the town will be proud of. So the best way to do it is give your custodians the best equipment, or the equipment that they can do their job efficiently. So even though to most people a $1,000 vacuum cleaner might seem like, what is it, gold plated? We're talking a backpack version, battery powers that they can go and really make hay without having the cords and all the stuff, and plus for repetitive injuries. And so we talked to our custodians about it. So having a conventional vacuum, which is a commercial vacuum, and a backpack version, but also a floor machine that they could actually really clean all the bathrooms, the locker rooms, go in and clean the cells and so that, which in the end is going to make it more efficient and save money. I'd rather spend it on this than spend it on more labor, because labor costs a lot of money. So those are, even though when Anna helped me put together, this is under, I'm assuming you're looking to the Board of Selectmen, is under her name, from May 28th. We kind of talked about, hey, let's do something. So at the time I said $1,000 a vacuum cleaner, 6 to 8 on a floor machine. I did get pricing and got 2 quotes on things. We were looking to get a backpack vacuum. It's about $998. A stand-up one, commercial one, is $952. There's a floor machine that's give or take $4,000. That's $6,000. The other $11,000, and I wrote here $5,000, but again, this is another one of those. If you add up the numbers, $1,000, $8,000, and $5,000 doesn't add up to $17,100. Is we're trying to apply. If for those that have driven in that building down there, you drive down the driveway, there's a huge sinkhole on the right, on the left, and then all the parking lot is all a mess. And I was just talking to them today as far as, well, what are you going to do with these patches and the crack ceiling? And I'd like to use this money to make get the line striping, get the parking lot nice, so when you drive down it, you have this beautiful building, and the parking lot and the driveway is, a hazard. So that's what I wanted to apply the remaining balance to. And so what we do is we have crack sealing bids that we use in the town, and also fold-up patchwork that we already have bidded. It meets the purchasing policy requirements, that instead of being on the road, I'd send them down there and do the patchwork. And that's the best way to do it, and I don't know of another plan that anyone has in place, so I want to do this so that we get ahead of it, and with the money available, and it wouldn't be any more than what we already had in the contingency already. So that's the plan, and that's why the numbers didn't look like they completely matched up. But this was when this memo was put in. It was kind of a, let's get this in. I'll get some more homework. I got now more quotes on what that equipment is. Anything that's over the purchasing threshold, obviously we'll have multiple quotes, and which I have right now. So
This is a request to use the remaining balance. If you don't use the remaining balance, it goes back into the undesignated fund.
That's correct.
Right, so so I'm okay with those estimates. I have a couple of questions. One, the floor cleaning machine, are you saying that that's going to be a piece of equipment specifically for the PSB, or will other buildings be able to take advantage of that?
We could, but this one, I have a copy of it right here, and it won't be 6,000 to 8,000. This one's 3,800, 3,900. But it actually, this can really do a good, effective job on the locker rooms and on all the bathrooms and in the cell areas and stuff like that. It has wands to do stuff like that, so it would really be kept there. But it can be brought to other buildings. It's mobile and portable. You can bring it other places, but this building's going to get cleaned every day, and so it's going to be used every day. So. But we, if we had to move it to another building, we could.
What do we use for our other buildings?
We have I don't know if you recall this, but we did buy something like if you go to BJ's or Costco, we bought one of those more industrial, ride behind floor cleaning machines for community center. I mean, it's just a ton of flooring there, and that's done a huge help to, it's hard when you have the custodians that you have, and it's just the height of inefficiency. So that is able to really get in there and do a number. This building, we have some commercial level vacuums, but this is all carpet. And what we found out, the flooring is at the new public safety building is going to be all VC, the vinyl coated tile like you see in a school. Mm-hmm. That's a high maintenance item, so you really need to keep after it, or else it gets scuffed up. And especially in the wintertime when the track and the salt, and we'll have runners and stuff for the floors, but this equipment will keep it lasting nice as long as possible.
So I actually have a question for Anna. Can you tell us how much is left in the PSB contingency, the project contingency fund?
That, you know, you know what, I don't have the balance off the top of my head. I'd be happy to check that out and email it to you. But they have been, I do attend all of the building committee meetings, and they have been chipping away at it for, you know, for various change orders that have come up.
So I guess I would want to know if this could be covered there.
The reason that Mr. Bergar is asking to use this resource is it's more or less, they're not planning to do anything with the building project funds with the parking area. And that's why, you know, knowing this source of funds is available, he's requesting to use it for that purpose.
When I went the day to that, we did a walkthrough, I was asked for these things, and that I was given the impression that none of that would be covered under the project. So I started shaking my head, and that's why I'm here today, to try to get ahead of it.
Well, originally they were going to have a coffee pot in that project plan, so I don't understand why a vacuum wouldn't be qualified. So I would like to know how much is left in the contingency fund for the PSB project before we approve this. And if the answer is no, then the answer is no.
Can it be, if it's approved, if the next meeting is in July, right? Can it still be taken from these funds, or in July, or after that? Because this is current operating year funds, right? And this is the last meeting of the fiscal year.
You'd have to pull it from contingency next year. This money would go back to the fund, and then you'd pull it from the new contingency amount if you came back in July.
Can I make a suggestion? Would the board at least entertain making, making the motion so that the equipment can be purchased, the vacuum cleaners and the floor cleaners?
Well, I suppose we could do that. And you're just saying leave out the patching of the...
Right, because...
But that's a safety issue, right?
Yeah, the parking lot has to be done before they move in. So I'm not sure.
So when are they planning on moving in?
I'm not a police officer. I don't know.
I am saying, here's the, if I may.
Sure.
I would say that the plan is for them to be in there by the end of August.
Is that on the, Karen, I see you typing over there. Is that?
I'm trying to see, I don't know if Fran puts that information in the minutes. You pulled those minutes, does she?
I was told to gear up for August too, but I was under the impression it was going to be earlier in August.
That's what I also understand from listening to updates from Paul Daigle at the Board of Selectmen meetings.
It's August?
It's August. And I've heard a span of time within August, but
Right,
it's August.
right, exactly.
So I think Aunt Chiquilla has a good idea.
Okay.
Why don't we take a 5-minute recess? And then maybe if this information is available in your office, you'd be able to get that for us?
What? Because we have done on our there's a lot of stuff that has to go in the minutes because I used to do it. When she came to my
Okay. So it's 9:10. We're going to take a 5 to 10-minute break. Thank you.
You're going on a field trip, you know?
Okay, we're on air. We're back. Welcome back to the Board of Finance meeting of June 9th. The time is now 9:20. We left off with the public safety contingency appropriation request of $17,110. We asked our finance director to research if there was any funds left over in the PSB contingency, project contingency. Okay, Anna.
On the report that I have as of May 16th, it was identified we had approximately $5,500 remaining in the contingency balance. And then there also was identified about $22,500 in potential savings. So if the savings comes to fruition, the balance would be about $28,000.
Do you know when they would find out whether they're going to get those savings or not?
Yeah, it's, you know what, it's an ongoing process, because when we identify savings, more than likely we may receive another change order that would use the savings up. So it's, you know, a constant, like, increases, decreases. So something is not really available until we actually have a change order in place for the reduction, i.e. the potential savings.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for either Joe Bergal or Anna regarding this appropriation request? If not, I'll call for a motion.
I move to approve a special appropriation to use a remaining balance of $17,110 in account 01-01-120-300-501, parentheses, PS Building Contingency, end parentheses, for the purchase of a vacuum cleaner, floor cleaning machine, and to repair the sinkhole in the driveway at that facility.
Is there a second?
I'll second. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, thanks, John. Any further discussion? I will comment that this contingency was set up, if you recall, for propane and oil deliveries, because we had not put that into the operating budget at that time. So we needed to move funds into a contingency account because the operations of the building, you know, it just wasn't included at that time. Now we're looking at things, a floor cleaning machine, a vacuum cleaner, and we have a safety issue for the driveway, which I think is important to repair. All of these things I am not against. I am against this appropriation request, calling upon this fund when there are funds available left in the Public Safety Building Project Contingency Fund. I would like to see all of those funds exhausted before they come back to the well. That would be my position. Are there any further comments before I call for a vote?
Yes, I'd like to comment on your point, Camille. Well, basically, I mean, there's two different contingencies at issue. The contingency account for the project is for the project, for building out, for the build out. The contingency for that Joe is referencing here is basically a maintenance contingency, and that includes your fuel and other related expenses. So I think they're two separate issues, and I wouldn't look to the project contingency to meet these needs. The most appropriate place is the very budget that was set up by Ms. Johnson, the $58,000 contingency amount.
Any further comments or discussion? Yes, Rich.
Just the comment that our finance director mentioned, that currently there's $5,500 left in the contingency budget. We have a request for $17,000 to be used from, well, not $17,000. Remove the remaining balance of $17,000, and there's identified $22,500 of potential savings, but that's provided that all the change orders don't exhaust that $22,500. So my question is, can we at least do the safety repair issue on the driveway and the sinkhole that is estimated at $5,000, and we've got the $5,500 that's currently in the fund at this point, and then reconsider the vacuum cleaner and the floor cleaning machine, because the building won't be occupied until sometime in August. So I understand being up ahead and, you know, being ready, set to go with it. But if we, in actuality, have $5,500 in the account, it's hard to justify overspending the account. Just my thoughts.
Can I ask a question? I think what was the cost to repair the sinkhole? I thought you said it was 11,000. That's what I wrote
I
down.
don't have an actual cost right now because I wanted to apply the whole 11 to the parking lot itself. And you asked a question a little while ago about what's causing it and what has to be repaired. Until we get into it, we're not exactly sure what it's going to. So I only preface this by I was trying to put something together. I was trying to work with the finance director to get to something for Board of Selectmen, but I'm not guaranteeing that 5,000 will repair that sinkhole. It would be better to. There's plenty of repairs in that thing and safety issues at 11. I would be much more comfortable with 11,000 if you don't do the 6,000 for the cleaning machines. It will just, I guess, have more labor. It's going to be. We'll just deal with that next year. But I would like to get the parking lot stuff done. I don't know who else is going to do it, and I don't know if it's not a contingency. I guess the only other option is coming back in July and hoping to get the work done right before they get it moved in, which is be cutting it close.
Just a clarification, I don't think the issue is should you have the machines, the cleaning machine and all that. I think it's where the money's going to come from. My question is, if the purchase is delayed, how much time do you need to purchase the machines before the building is open? You know,
I don't know when the building is opening, but
we're saying sometime between August and August.
Yeah. The sooner we get the equipment, I don't know exactly the lead time on this stuff right now. I had my building maintainer supervisor, Ron Bentz, looking at the pricing. I assume they're somewhat readily available, so I'm not hearing it's 6-8 weeks, but I just don't want to okay, they're moving in now in the first week of August, so we don't have the right equipment in place because there's so that's why we're here in June. So I don't have the exact time of how long it takes to get in. And I understand we're going to ultimately have to get it, but getting into that new building, we're just not exactly sure everything of how it's going to be. I'm taking a little bit of risk of how to clean it because all we're doing is based on a piece of a plan and now walking around it.
Right.
How intensive is going to be to, I don't know how many times they have prisoners in there. Do the prisoners, are there blood all over? There's just all kinds of issues that we've never dealt with. Locker rooms, all kinds of stuff. So, and it's hard to compare it to the existing building because I'll tell you right now, on record, we're not cleaning it the way it should be because we don't have the manpower. The person that's cleaning that building is also cleaning this building. So that building really needs someone there all the time. So there's a lot of unknown that I can't tell you, but we're trying to be proactive and be ahead of it so when we get there, we're ready to go. And it starts with the parking lot and it starts getting equipment because those are two things that when I talk to in my walkthrough and talk with the people they're doing, they said that's not going to be paid for. So I'm not sure what the solution is.
Yes, Rich.
Yes, I don't know if this is allowable or not, but we have another contingency fund in town, and can these expenses be taken from that contingency fund if we exhaust the public safety contingency fund that was set up for electricity and propane?
Yes, so are you talking about the account we have set up for the public safety contingency within the general fund budget, or are you talking about the contingency that was set up within the public safety building project fund?
I think you're talking about the other one.
I'm talking about the other one, the contingency fund that we have within the general fund.
Okay, so the contingency fund that we have within the general fund, we've identified the $17,110 to be the remaining balance, and the request before you is asking to use those remaining funds to purchase vacuum cleaners, a floor cleaning machine, and use that remaining portion to deal with addressing safety issues at the public safety facility parking lot.
Rich, I know what you're getting at.
Yeah.
Let me just, because I have an account number here. I believe Rich is talking about 0101120, the regular contingency account.
Yes, that was what I was talking about.
Okay, so in other words, so like if this fiscal year ends, we could come back next year and use that contingency account to fund any of these items that we're asking for tonight?
Okay. Not at the end of the fiscal, because we're asking to be appropriating the money tonight, correct? So I'm wondering if that contingency fund is allowed to be used for this purpose if we have the funds in there. I'm fully supportive of what Mr. Pagral is asking for. I just want to make sure that there's a fund that actually truly has the money to be utilized. And I don't know if that other contingency fund is allowed to be used for this.
You know what, I'm sorry, I'm not understanding your question.
Okay. There's a public safety contingency fund which is mentioned in this special appropriation.
Correct.
Okay. And then we have the contingency fund. The general
Okay,
contingency
yes.
fund. Okay. For this purpose, can the general contingency fund be utilized? If we have the money in there.
It could be, yes.
Okay.
However, so for like the request that's before you, that was forwarded to you by the Board of Selectmen. So
Right.
if you didn't approve this one, then and wanted us to use the other contingency, thought we would have to start again with the Board of Selectmen.
Oh. And this is pretty time critical, I would imagine, at this point, so the delay to next month would be a factor.
Well, it's just a different fiscal year.
Yeah.
You're taking contingency out of the beginning of the year instead of the end of the year when money's available.
It would be available, though. I guess I'm stating my preference would be to ensure that the project contingency fund is fully exhausted before they come back to the well for these other contingency accounts. And if we don't approve this tonight, whatever money is left over in that account will be returned to the general fund. But July 1st starts a brand new fiscal year with a brand new bucket of contingency money. And if these things were not handled by the project contingency fund, they could always come back. But in my mind, I'm thinking it's not up to us to prioritize how they're going to use the remaining money or how they're going to, utilize $22,500 in potential savings that were identified. It's not up to us to prioritize that. I think if these were critical, that they should be prioritizing that from that fund. I guess that's all I'm trying to say.
But the money that's there is just $5,500. The other is, my question was, it's only potential savings. So, it's not like next Friday they're going to get $22,500. Do you know what I mean? So that's where I think we should approve this, because I think you need the money now in order to actually, get this building to be prepared for when it's occupied.
And if I could say too, I think the account from which you wish to pay for these items is closest, because it's a maintenance account, and closest to to the use in the proposed use, which is the parking lot and the vacuum and the floor cleaning apparatus. So that to me is even if there was some designation that it was just fuel, just oil, it's still a maintenance account contingency versus a project account or the contingency general account that we pluck stuff out of, mostly for overtime and so forth. So I think this is closest to the mark. And you have the $17,110 left in it?
No.
No.
That's the issue, is that there's $5,500 left in it.
No, that's a different.
No?
That's the project account.
That's the project.
Oh, okay.
That's
Yes.
why he's coming to this account.
There's money in this account.
Yes, which,
Fully funded.
so this account is that
Oh,
from
okay.
Rich, from the $58,000 that was initially set up for operational expenses for the fuel and.
And the 58,000 wasn't willy-nilly. Part of that was actually for building maintenance
Yes.
items and buying these things. So it actually was,
Okay.
it just happens to be we have not moved in yet.
Right.
Because, I mean, back when we set this thing up, I had no idea when this thing was moving in. So
Right.
we could have very well bought this stuff in this year anyways.
Yeah.
It just happens to be that they're moving in a month after the fiscal year. But it's actually, I mean, you're not telling the residents and the taxpayers anything different. It's actually part of that money was set aside for this very purpose.
Yes, it's an operational maintenance account because.
Oh, okay. So the 50, so
If you
the
look-
5,500 was the building
Correct.
project maintenance.
Yes, the
Oh,
If
okay.
you look on
Okay,
page-
that
If you look
that
on page
clarifies.
11 of the budget report, you'll see that $17,110
Oh, okay.
account balance that we're
Oh, okay.
we're talking about. It is a bill.
Okay.
Okay, so one final question, Anna, then. Can we get a full accounting of the project at our next meeting?
Sure.
Okay. All right. All right. We have a motion on the floor. We have a second. We can take a vote. If there's no further discussion, I'll say I'm willing to go along with this, but let's get that full accounting of the public safety building project costs for our next meeting. Okay? All right. No, if there's no further discussion, I'll call for a vote. I mean, a motion.
Okay, I move to approve a special appropriation to use the remaining balance of $17,110.
I think you made the motion.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
So
And it's been seconded, so
Okay, me
we.
too. So I was right the
Vote.
first time. I'll call for a vote.
I thought I did it.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries 600.
So it's getting
That's
late.
your bedtime.
It is. I'm tired.
All right, thanks. Okay. So, thanks, Joe. So the first selectman had come to us earlier and said, recommended that we table that discussion because they're going to rework some numbers. So
Yes.
we will take no action on item 7E, that special appropriation. We'll move on to item F, ratified department transfers, $145,699.20. We have a schedule in our packet detailing the movement of funds from one account to another. Would you like to elaborate for us, Anna, on anything?
So a good number of them were dealing with the fire department's overtime accounts, transferring funds, from other salary accounts where, for various reasons, there were resources available to the overtime accounts. Then also with regards to overtime for the highway, there are several transfers for when we pay our legal bills. We're within the legal department budget, but sometimes like one area in legal, the bills come in greater than how we estimate. But we do, we're still within the different legal accounts categories. And then
So, Anna, just a question. So you're transferring it from different accounts, but where's it coming from and where's it going? I guess I'm kind of...
so there's on the left-hand side are identified all the accounts where the funds are coming from, and on the right-hand side there are the accounts that they're going to. So the very first one was Niantic Fire, and we transferred funds from the regular payroll account and the longevity account to deal with overtime. So
Oh, okay,
at
I
night-
understand now.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
we try to
okay.
write like brief little descriptions so you kind of understand the purpose that we're making the transfers for.
And then another question I have is, LAP insurance deductible payment to Kerma, is that liability, accident, or property? Or what is that, liability?
Yeah, so it's liability, auto, personal property.
Ah, got it, thank you.
Any further questions from any board members? This is fairly a routine request at the end of the fiscal year. The transfers have already been made. We're being asked to ratify it. I never understood this, why this was necessary, but I guess we're dotting the i's and crossing the t's. So if there's no further discussion, I will call for a motion.
I move to ratify departmental transfers in the amount of $145,699.20 processed for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021, as outlined in the attached budget transfer schedule.
Thanks, Ann. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Rich. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 600. Thank you. Okay, with that, let's move on to agenda item 8, old business. Do we have any? I don't think so. Next month we will have old business because we'll be perhaps looking at that public safety building accounting. There's nobody here for public discussion, so we'll move on to board comments. Would any board member like to make a comment?
Okay, yes, I just have one. Yeah, we were speaking about the American Rescue Plan, you know, and the new updated regulations that have come out. So I have recently spoken to First Selectman Nickerson, and but I would, in speaking to him again, I would like to ask that that this board be briefed once, you know, the legalities of all of that are worked out, that and Anna is, you know, getting all that information, that we get at least a concise briefing on you know, the parameters of the use of the money, because as you know, initially those first categories first enunciated were, you know, the kind of general. So we expected those regulations to come out, and so now it's painting a different picture. So and we're going to have to be the final line of appropriations. So at that point, it'd be great to be sure that whatever has been on the wish list, you know, so to speak, or the needs list, whatever it is, or combo, that it fits. You know, whatever the appropriate uses are that are required under the regulations, and you can look them up, and if you need some reading material, you can wade through them. But what I just skimmed, and I did find something of interest, which is I think we can actually spend money to incentivize folks to get vaccinated. You know how this is happening at the state levels? Yes. So don't know if it goes down to that municipal level, but yeah, that's definitely an okay use. So, but it's yeah, very detailed, and I'm sure Anna, you're going to get more and more info. But it'd be good to be briefed officially in some way.
That's an excellent point. Thanks, Ann. Any other comments from the board?
I wanted to make a comment, and I'm hesitant to do so because I don't want to open the
Can of worms.
But the discussion in terms of attaching the material to the minutes, and my comment was, I mean, the discussion we had, I want to, my observation was it was an opinion about whether what was the right way to do it, and then there was the procedure, and you had come in with a procedure. You had talked to the town clerk, and then the discussion was, did we agree with it or not? And this is not really the forum to express you know, we spent a lot of time discussing our opinion about whether we agreed with the procedure or not. And I think, I just want to point out that there was two different things going on here. We needed to get minutes approved, and there was a procedure, and you had one based in substance. Not everybody agreed with the procedure, but we weren't, I don't think it was appropriate for us to spend so much time discussing the procedure as much, with the goal of being improving minutes. Am I making myself clear? Yeah, I thought you were with me there. Okay?
It's late,
Yeah,
Peter.
yeah,
You came in
Yes.
with a procedure. You talked to the town clerk,
Yes.
this is how to do it, this is what
Yes.
to do. I don't agree with it. Okay, I don't agree with it, but
Right.
that's the procedure that's on the floor. We're not at liberty to
We're-
discuss the procedure.
Right.
That's my point.
No, and I think you're absolutely right, Peter. I do. I think we spent far too much time trying to challenge a procedure that is in place.
That's not ours to,
That-
just, it's
right.
not our procedure to
Right.
set.
Right.
And
So
if
I
it
think,
is,
so I
it's
think
not in
in
this meeting.
Right, exactly. So that's really a procedure maybe for the attorneys and Board of Selectmen, you
Yeah,
know,
or outside
not
the
for the
meeting,
Board
yeah.
of Finance. I mean, but I think it was important to just act on what we were told by an elected official we could or could not do.
Because
Yeah.
we all have opinions about the
Right.
procedure and,
Yeah.
whether, so.
You know, I appreciate that comment.
So all I wanted to say was maybe going forward, just to kind of be a little proactive, if, we write memos or emails or
Yeah.
communications, then maybe whoever kind of spearheads the email could print it down, bring it to the meeting, and then hand it to the recording secretary, and then that way it will be attached at the proper time,
So, like,
is what I'm thinking.
We actually do that routinely,
Yeah.
but I think what's happened is through the virtual meetings, and we just lost that
That ability,
pattern.
yeah.
Right.
So then, we're given
Yeah.
a whole bunch of minutes to look at,
Yeah.
oh my God, go back and look.
It's inefficient. That's what it is. It's just a,
I
yeah.
realize it was an anomaly, but I just wanted
Yeah.
to make that observation that there was two things going on there. So,
Okay.
I'm gonna
Rich?
start.
Yes. I thought it was great having Michelle Williams come to discuss the POCD. And in light of that presentation and the discussion which was tabled on the town's use of the American Rescue Funds, I think it might be beneficial for the community that instead of getting just maybe 3 or 4 things, maybe get other suggestions that were forwarded up to the Board of Selectmen, and maybe a little table as to whether it fit within the parameters of the American Rescue Plan, or if it didn't, and how it fits with the POCD, if it's possible that there's a relationship there, so that we can jumpstart this making things actionable items out of the POCD, and maybe the American Rescue Plan can help us move in that direction. Just a thought.
So how would we go about doing that? Do you think that we should request the Board of Selectmen to allow participation from the Board of Finance on the front end? I mean, I don't know how to actuate what you're saying.
I think just if there were public comments or public suggestions or discussions within the Board of Selectmen, that we see some of the subjects that were brought up, not just the ones that were approved, and
Right. No, I like that.
how they can fit in with parameters of the POCD, if at all possible. They may not.
I like that idea, but I'm trying to figure out how can we make that happen. We can either request to be part of the process, or we could take it upon ourselves to assign that responsibility, maybe, or if there's a volunteer that would like to listen in on those meetings and report back. I don't know how to get the Board of Selectmen to deliver what it is you're asking for. That's my.
Okay, I thought we could just request it, maybe, but
I think part of the problem, though, is I don't think anybody at this point, I mean, it didn't sound like Mr. Nickerson really knows what the parameters are, because it looks like they changed them. It was kind of like, I mean, they
It's a moving
had,
target.
the Board of Selectmen, I mean, I listened, they had at least 5 or 6 meetings, with different people, and they were on board to try to help these different groups, and now all of a sudden he comes in today and, it's like, well, now we can't do that. So I think we at least have to figure out what the parameters are before we can kind of, I think what you're saying is good, but I think what Ann had said before too, we really need to know what the parameters are. And I think everybody's disappointed because I think everybody had a certain mindset and we were ready to go. And, you know, the Board of Selectmen, I mean, they really were very proactive and they had a lot of different people, you know, speak before them. And, you know, it's kind of for naught, it seems like at this point. So.
Well, I don't think it's for naught. I mean, I think that will still go into their decision-making process, you know.
If it falls in the
but-
parameters, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think the parameters, if anything, are going to be expanded because there's so much money coming in now that it's impossible to spend all of that on, you know, vaccination clinics or whatever this narrow scope is. So I think, if I heard correctly, the first selectman saying that the parameters are actually going to expand as to the use of the funds.
I don't know.
So, but I like your idea, Anne. So, I think that perhaps Ms. Johnson can go back and report to the Board of Selectmen that as they come forward with appropriation requests, that they present to us exactly what Ms. Santora requested before we take any action on anything. I'm willing to stand by that. I think it's a good idea.
I made a note, so I will have a discussion with them.
Thank you. That's great. All right. Any other comments? Okay. I do apologize to Ann Santoro. You know, this is my last comment. I've just never had quite that kind of discussion over minutes before.
That's fine. I mean,
No hard feelings.
No, it's actually an interesting, probably legal issue.
Yeah.
And, you know, and who knows where it really falls. But it's interesting. Like the same thing with like repetitive data that could be attached, you know. Can we jump in there and, because it's already showed up, not have it on an email? That one, I tried to do a little research on that one, but there was really, you know, the feeling was leave things alone and just attach as they are. But I mean, there's a reality to printing paper, and you know, when you're filing with the clerk. So and some of these things don't even have answers, you know. So, but no problem. We worked it out. It's at least in there.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So final comment, we're back in person. Green folders get returned to the finance director.
Oh.
And with that,
Item for the green folders.
I know.
with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Great, 600. All right, thanks everyone.